August 8th, 1986. Kids walked into theaters expecting a bigger version of the Transformers cartoon they already loved. What they got was something very different. Within minutes, familiar Autobots were being shot to pieces. Brawn went down, Prowl died in a burst of fire, Ratchet was killed, Ironhide was executed by Megatron, and then Hasbro did the one thing almost nobody in that audience believed was possible. They killed Optimus Prime. The hero of the entire franchise turned gray and died on a table while the Autobots stood around him. For kids watching in 1986, this wasn't just another cartoon death. This was Optimus Prime. And behind the scenes, the reason was brutally simple. Hasbro needed to sell new toys, but the decision backfired so badly that it changed another Hasbro movie, forced Transformers to resurrect its fallen leader, and helped turn what had initially been a box office disappointment into one of the most beloved cult films of the 1980s. Now, 40 years later, Hasbro is literally calling its theatrical return the Apology Tour. And this time, the movie is coming back with something audiences have never seen before, a brand new chapter after the credits. Welcome to Nostalgia Rewind, where we uncover the cartoons, toy lines, games, and forgotten franchises that defined our childhoods. Now let's rewind Transformers the movie. By 1985, Transformers had become exactly what Hasbro wanted, a toy phenomenon. The animated series had launched in 1984, giving personalities, voices, and mythology to Hasbro's transforming robots. Optimus Prime wasn't simply a red truck anymore. He was the noble leader of the Autobots. Megatron wasn't just another action figure, he was Prime's opposite. And Bumblebee, Starscream, Soundwave, Ironhide, Jazz, and the rest had become recognizable characters to millions of kids. But that success created a problem. Transformers was built around constantly introducing new products, and by 1986, many of the characters that launched the franchise represented toys kids had already seen on shelves for 2 years. Hasbro needed room for the next generation, so instead of quietly phasing the old characters out, the company decided to make that transition part of a theatrical movie. Director Nelson Shin later explained that merchandising considerations shaped which characters would appear. The old guard was going out. Hot Rod, Cup, Ultra Magnus, Springer, RC, Blur, Galvatron, Cyclonus, Scourge. The 1986 generation was coming in. There was one strange exception. Screenwriter Ron Friedman had pushed for the movie to include a female Autobot. That character became RC. But despite appearing prominently in a film largely designed to introduce new merchandise, RC never received a mass-market toy in the original 1986 line. And she wasn't the only major movie character children couldn't buy. The film's enormous villain, Unicron, was also developed as a toy concept but never made it to retail. For a movie designed partly to sell Transformers, 2 of its most memorable new Transformers weren't actually available. Set in the then-distant future of 2005, the story jumped roughly 20 years ahead of the earliest television adventures. The Decepticons now controlled Cybertron. The Autobots operated from bases elsewhere while preparing to take their home planet back. And somewhere beyond their war, something much larger was approaching. Unicron, a planet-sized transformer that consumed entire worlds. This wasn't going to feel like a regular Saturday morning episode. The film was directed by Nelson Shin, produced through Sunbow and Marvel Productions, with extensive animation work handled in Japan. Everything was still hand-drawn, but the scale, lighting, detail, and movement were far beyond what the weekly television budget could normally deliver. Shin later remembered the sheer amount of work and the production deadline as 2 of the movie's biggest challenges. But the most consequential battle wasn't happening at an animation desk. It was happening in the script. Hasbro wanted Optimus Prime dead, and Friedman fought against it. Optimus wasn't just another character waiting to be rotated out. To the children watching him every week, Friedman believed Prime had become the father figure of the Transformers family. He warned Hasbro that if they killed him, they would eventually have to bring him back. They went ahead anyway. But Friedman found a way to make part of Optimus survive. If Prime's physical body had to die, his values didn't. That idea helped evolve into one of the movie's most important concepts, the matrix of leadership. Optimus could disappear physically, while the spirit of what made him a leader could pass to his successor. And eventually, to Hot Rod. What began as a way to soften a merchandising mandate became one of the most important pieces of Transformers mythology. But first, Optimus still had to die. Transformers the movie wastes no time. Unicron consumes the populated planet Lithone. The Decepticons intercept an Autobot shuttle. In seconds, 4 familiar Autobots are dead. No miraculous escape. They take the shuttle and launch an assault on Autobot City. What follows is a war sequence. Laser fire, explosions, Decepticons breaking through the city's defenses, then the Autobot reinforcements arrive. Optimus Prime transforms, charges through the battlefield, and confronts Megatron. For a few minutes, this is the fight fans had been waiting for. Prime versus Megatron. No retreat, no cliffhanger, no reset button.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
Prime wins, but Megatron mortally wounds him in the process. Surrounded by his friends, Optimus passes the matrix of leadership to Ultra Magnus. His voice fades, his body turns gray. He dies. The show had trained kids to believe these characters always survived. The movie destroyed that. Story consultant Flint Dilley later admitted the production team didn't understand how deeply children had bonded with Optimus. Kids cried, some walked out, angry letters started arriving. The filmmakers thought they were retiring a product line. The audience thought they'd just watched their hero die. And remarkably, the finished movie was actually the toned-down version. Earlier drafts and storyboards were even more brutal. The sweeps were originally going to tear Ultra Magnus apart. Other characters were slated to die too. Mirage, Red Alert, before those scenes got cut. What kids saw in theaters was already shocking. It could have been worse. And Prime wasn't the end of the purge. The wounded Decepticons are dumped into space. Unicron finds Megatron and rebuilds him as Galvatron. Thundercracker and other discarded cons are reforged into Cyclonus and Scourge. Galvatron returns to Cybertron. Starscream has just crowned himself the new leader. Galvatron transforms, fires once, and Starscream disintegrates. Another face from the original era, gone. It's ruthless product transition, but it's also something the TV show rarely had. Consequences. Hasbro stacked the cast. Judd Nelson as Hot Rod, Robert Stack as Ultra Magnus, Eric Idle as Wreck-Gar, Casey Kasem back as Cliffjumper, Leonard Nimoy taking over from Frank Welker to make Galvatron darker. But the biggest name was Orson Welles. The director of Citizen Kane voiced Unicron, recorded days before his death in October 1985, one of his final performances. And he didn't sound like a cartoon monster. He sounded ancient, massive, inevitable.
The Matrix has not been destroyed.
Then there's the soundtrack. Lion turned the theme into hard rock. Vince DiCola scored it. Weird Al's Dare to Be Stupid somehow soundtracks Robotic Garbage Collectors. And Stan Bush delivers the song that's now inseparable from Transformers, The Touch. Cast, soundtrack, animation, none of it felt like the TV show anymore. By the final battle, it pays off. Hot Rod opens the Matrix, becomes Rodimus Prime. Galvatron's blasted into space. Unicron's destroyed. Cybertron's back in Autobot hands. Optimus was gone, but the ideals survived him. From Hasbro's chair, the job was done. Old generation out, new generation in. One problem. The audience didn't want Optimus Prime gone. The Transformers the movie opened in the United States on August 8, 1986. It played in 990 theaters. Opening weekend brought in roughly $1.78 million. Its original domestic run finished at approximately $5.85 million. The commonly reported production budget was around $6 million, meaning its domestic theatrical run didn't even equal the reported production costs before marketing and distribution were considered. It also landed in an extremely crowded movie year. Aliens, The Karate Kid Part 2, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Short Circuit, Flight of the Navigator, and plenty more. Hasbro's My Little Pony the movie had struggled that year too. But the bigger problem wasn't simply that too few people saw Transformers. It was what happened to the kids who did. Optimus Prime's death became notorious. Ron Friedman had warned Hasbro. Now the reaction proved his point, and the damage control began. When the film reached home video in the United Kingdom in 1987, additional narration was used to reassure viewers that Optimus Prime would return. Think about what that means. The death that was supposed to clear the way for Hasbro's future had already become something the company needed to soften, and the fallout spread into another Hasbro production, G.I. Joe, the movie. Duke was originally supposed to die. The animation had already been built around his death, but after seeing what happened with Optimus Prime, Hasbro reversed course. Dialogue was changed so Duke instead went into a coma, and the ending reassures viewers that he recovered. Writer Buzz Dixon has been clear. Duke was supposed to be dead. The awkward coma survives in the finished film because Optimus Prime had shown Hasbro exactly what could happen when a children's franchise permanently killed its central hero. Transformers eventually reversed its own decision too. Season 3 first brought Prime's body back in Dark Awakening, where the Quintessons reactivated him. Then, in early 1987, the return of Optimus Prime restored him permanently within the original cartoon continuity. The toy replacement plan had worked. But Hasbro had learned something far more valuable. These characters were no longer just products. The audience had formed emotional relationships with them. And ironically, that emotional attachment would ultimately save the movie too. Something strange happened after Transformers the movie disappeared from theaters. It refused to disappear from Transformers culture. And this wasn't just nostalgia rewriting history decades later. The comeback started almost immediately at home. The 1987 VHS and Betamax release became a strong children's video seller, spending roughly 40 weeks in Billboard's top 25 kid video sales chart. The movie couldn't find enough people in theaters, but once kids could watch it repeatedly at home, it found its audience. Then came later VHS editions, DVDs, Blu-rays, anniversary releases, 4K, and theatrical revivals. Fathom and Hasbro brought it back to US theaters for its 35th anniversary in 2021. The things that had made the movie shocking in 1986 slowly became the things fans celebrated. And the soundtrack developed a life of its own. The touch escaped the movie completely, appearing in Transformers games, later films, and pop culture far outside the franchise. Even decades later, Transformers creators continued looking back at the 1986 movie. Transformers 1 director Josh Cooley has spoken about the impact Optimus Prime's death had on him as a child. In fact, the film wasn't really a disposable spin-off at all. It became the bridge between two eras of Generation 1. Before the movie, Optimus Prime, Megatron, the familiar Earth-based conflict. After the movie, Rodimus Prime, Galvatron, Unicron, the Matrix, the Quintessons. A much larger cosmic Transformers universe. The movie had failed to become a mainstream theatrical hit, but it had become something more durable, a Transformers rite of passage. And by 2026, Hasbro wasn't hiding the Optimus controversy anymore. It was building an anniversary campaign around it. Hasbro is calling the 40th anniversary the Apology Tour. 40 years after killing Optimus Prime, they're finally saying sorry. The Rollout, a reimagined soundtrack, a celebration of live concert at San Diego Comic-Con, a deluxe hardcover collecting the comic adaptations. The reformatted edition soundtrack dropped July 24th, 10 tracks re-recorded by Stan Bush and Vince DiCola, joined by Sebastian Bach, Brittany Slays, and Mark Osegueda under the name Knights of Unicron. And remember Unicron, the villain kids couldn't actually buy in 1986? Never made it to retail. In 2019, HasLab finally built him, a crowd-funded figure at nearly $575, backed by thousands. The toy, too impractical to sell in '86, became the toy adult fans lined up to pay hundreds for. Now, the main event. September 17th to 21st, 2026, Transformers Day kicks it off. The movie returns to theaters in 4K with 4DX in select markets, across the US, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, and Germany. Tickets went on sale August 7th. And here's the twist. For the first time, it doesn't end when the movie does. Hasbro's confirmed a new scene after the credits, reportedly set after Unicron's destruction, teased with Optimus Prime imagery. But Hasbro hasn't said what's actually in it. Until they do, call it speculation. Hasbro wanted kids to move on in 1986. They never did. RC got her toy. Unicron got his. The Matrix became mythology. Optimus came back, and the flop outlived everything that beat it at the box office that summer. The gamble failed. The movie didn't. Hasbro tried to kill it off. Instead, they made it immortal. So was killing Optimus Prime the biggest mistake Hasbro ever made with Transformers? Or was it the decision that accidentally made Transformers the movie unforgettable? Let me know in the comments. And if you want the bigger picture, how Transformers went from a random toy line to one of the biggest franchises on the planet, we've got a full video covering that history. Links on screen and in the description. Go check it out next. Subscribe to Nostalgia Rewind so you don't miss any deep dives. Until next time, keep rewinding.